Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? Good. All right, cool. Glad you joined us. My name is Chris Garcia. I'm the founder of SegYourWay, and I'm here to talk to you about how we're trying to provide solutions to the last mile problem. To get started off, has anybody here heard of the last mile problem? I know we're a transportation meetup, but it is a little bit of a niche focus within transportation. I saw a couple hands. So to sum it up for you who haven't heard of it, it's basically providing a micro-mobility solution for those distances that are maybe a little bit uncomfortable to walk, but too short or impossible to drive due to parking constraints or traffic or anything like that. Really targeting the distances between half a mile and a mile and a half. Currently, there aren't really a whole lot of solutions in this segment. There are a lot of different transportation models coming out, like Uber and Car2Go and Zipcar and Scoot Networks and Karma and RideScout providing all the aggregating. But there aren't really a whole lot of people focusing on providing the actual transportation in this, once again, niche sector. The closest is going to be bike shares. But the problem that we see with bike shares is that you don't always want to get a workout or break a sweat just to go from point A to point B. And in downtown urban centers like Austin, or on large university campuses like the University of Texas at Austin, where 30,000 people live within a 1 mile radius and make short trips all day long, they want another solution because the buses can be overcrowded. Again, parking is very difficult, if not impossible, on the university campus and downtown Austin. We're here right now. I'm sure several of you had to park a distance away. But again, trying to provide a convenient and quick alternative for these short distances. So what is the solution? If you hadn't guessed already, we're using Segways. And the idea is to be a point-to-point Segway share that operates like Car2Go. It would work through a mobile application just like Car2Go. The difference in the technology stack would be that instead of RFID, bringing another piece of hardware into the equation with a card that you have to pull out of your wallet or your purse every time you want to make a ride, we would utilize Bluetooth Low Energy Partner and make that proximity function driven through the smartphone that everybody already loves and carries in their pocket. The pricing would be set up just like Car2Go. There would be a membership fee that you would have to pay that would just give you access to the service, and then each one of your rides there would be a trip charge. So a lot of companies provide a solution that you have to commit to some form of fee, and it doesn't flex based off your usage, so we're trying to solve that with the trip pricing. A little bit of insight into how it would look. Again, it's a mobile application. Everything's done through the app, through payment, from rental to location. Everything will be done inside the app. When you open it up, you'll see a map interface with the locations of all the Segways near you, and it would automatically bring up the nearest one for you to match up to and make your reservation. At the conclusion of your ride, you'd simply hop off it, go into the application, and click End Rental, directly process your credit card, and you'd be good to go. So I've come to the past couple transportation meetups. I am by far the earliest stage company to present at any of these. I have been working on this for a couple years now. It's been an idea that I've really been passionate about, something that I really believe can make a difference and provide the convenience that people demand. But what has been accomplished is developing a prototype through Emeco, who, if you know, has worked on Silvercar and Shelfbucks, working with them on their app development and some of their hardware build with that Bluetooth Low Energy again. But the next step moving forward is to try and prove some revenue, because in all the meetups that I've gone to and in all the mentors and advisors that I've talked with, what has to be proven, despite the fact that in theory and in logic it makes sense, will people pay for it, will people buy it? So the next step is to take this prototype that I've had developed and do some outreach, get some demos, maybe make a few rentals, raise a round, try a beta market with 10 to 20 units on the UT campus, hire some people, and then eventually build that full stack so it can be a really seamless, smooth transaction for all the customers. Then eventually, grow it to a saturation point. Right here is kind of the goal. This is what the UT campus and surrounding neighborhoods could look like with 200 units on the ground. And the idea is that there's always one nearby, so that when you're ready to go somewhere, you don't have to walk an extended distance to begin your trip like you may have to do with a bus stop. It's always nearby like car to go. And then ultimately there are markets all across the country, all across the world that I believe could use a last mile solution like the one I'm proposing. But that's going to pretty much sum up my high level overview. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. I can start taking those now. Yes, sir.
How does the Bluetooth proximity locator work? Or does the Segway lock down until something? I'm not sure how that actually.
Yeah, sure. So a stock Segway that you buy from any Segway dealer has a little Zigbee remote key that has 4 buttons on it. It has an alarm function, a power function, turtle speed function for beginners, and a general settings button. This communicates with the central unit, and what we did was tie in, I'm not the engineer or anything, but we tied in some wiring into those button sockets and tied that to the Bluetooth Low Energy board so that Bluetooth signal, whenever it reached 10 feet, or I guess you can fluctuate the distance based off when you want it to trigger, but the idea would be that once you walk in and that presence is detected, the Bluetooth Low Energy board would send a signal to that socket, engaging the alarm to either switch on or off. And a little bit more info on that alarm. What happens when you mess with it and it's in the alarm state, the wheels lock up, the whole thing shakes and vibrates, and an audible siren goes off. So there's a pretty good deterrent in there for anybody that might try and mess with them. Yes?
I have 2 questions. One is, how do you charge? How are you going to manage the charging, recharging these stations?
Yeah.
And then 2, why did you pick the location that you said it was because of the terrain being flat, or did that go into it?
The location being the UT campus?
Right. There's basically the area, service area.
Yeah, so the first question about charging. The long-term goal is to have charging stations all around whatever geofence we would determine, and incentivize users to take them to those charging stations. It wouldn't be required because, again, what we believe that we're providing is convenience, that ability to get from point A to point B faster. We don't want to limitate that convenience by saying you have to take it to this rack that may not be near your final destination. So the ultimate goal is to build these out, but it's an infrastructure cost. It adds a lot of money to the project. In the short time, it would be like a battery swap, plain and simple. Is that we would be monitoring through the network connection that we would establish to the cloud. Something that we'd be tracking is battery status. Whenever that battery level reached a certain trigger amount, we could set it at 15, depending on how long we thought that it would take us to get out there, or 10, whatever. That would just trigger a fleet manager, whatever you want to call them, to take out a fresh set of batteries, pop them out, put in the new ones, take the old ones back to the central station to charge them up. And then to answer the second question, why I chose that area, went to school at UT, experienced the problem a lot myself. I mean, I designed this as a consumer looking for a better solution. I mean, I lived in West Campus, I had the 15-minute walk 5 times a day, and in 100-degree weather, that didn't really treat me that well. And the main bus route that circles that area is very overcrowded. I mean, I would go out and sit at the bus stop and have 2 buses drive by me completely full and not stop at my station because it was it's too busy. So, there's, like I said, I think it's about 33,000 people that live within a 1-mile radius of campus, and they're making those trips all day long. So I feel like there's there's more trips. There's more trip frequency. If you were to do it in a downtown like Austin, you'd have 3 peak times, which is when we have our traffic. At the beginning of the day, when everybody shows up, people might ride the urban rail in and ride it to their office, or drive and park 10 minutes away from their office and maybe want that last jaunt. But then there's really there's lunch, maybe go get something in the evening. So I just felt like there was better trip frequency. Cool, thank you. Any other, yeah?
So how do you store the vehicles when they're not in use and prevent them from being vandalized, stolen, etc.?
There isn't any plan to do a whole fleet pickup at the end of the day and redeploy at the beginning of the morning. The idea is that they will sit out in the geofence just like car-to-go cars sit out all 24 hours of the day. The theft prevention that's in place is the tracking and the alarm system. So the first deterrent, if the alarm and the siren and everything else isn't enough for you to walk away and say that that's enough, then whenever that GPS signal starts to move in combination with us seeing that the alarm is being engaged, then we can alert authorities or send out a quick response team or whatever and just check on the unit, make sure that it's okay. But also insurance would be in place and all those sorts of things. Yes?
Sorry, I was writing on the whiteboard during the Q&A, so I might have covered this already. Have you found out whether or not you can use them on all the sidewalks in the city?
The city ordinance, I believe it's actually just the full state ordinance, and I think it's 46 of the 50 states have passed legislation stating that segways can be ridden on sidewalks, in bike lanes, and on streets where the speed is less than 30 miles an hour. So yeah, anywhere in Texas and those 46 states, it's what the regulation states. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
So I'm curious, like with the car to go, if you were going to use a car and then you know you're going to be somewhere for like half an hour or 45 minutes, you sort of end your time, but then you can reserve it again for, that later time so that you're not stuck with somebody else driving off the car in the meantime.
Right.
And so I assume that you would also incorporate something like that.
Yeah, I believe what you're referring to is like the stopover button that you press. Yeah, there would be some form of built-in feature like that so that if you knew that you were just going to be making a quick stop and you didn't want the unit to be taken and then you'd be stranded. So there would be that, but then ultimately, like I showed in that map, the goal is to have a saturation that makes it so that if the exact unit that you took is used, then there should be another one within a couple blocks so that I know when I use car-to-go, that's something that I experienced a lot was because the geofence is so large, you can take a car somewhere and go in, and then when you go out, if somebody's taking it, there could not be another one near you for 3/4 of a mile. So that's like a really key metric for us is just the geographic density to make sure that that's
And then
satisfied.
one place I could imagine when you were saying about downtown and the way the trip timing and stuff would be is you may try some of the law firms in town and so on that have to be sending back and forth things between their offices and courthouse and stuff. And so a lot of them are located where it's not a huge distance, but might be the proximity that you're trying to target.
Yeah, something to think about for sure. I know Uber got into the courier service up in New York, so there are a lot of different ways that you can go with anything on wheels, really. Yes.
Yeah, so one thing, I don't know much about segways. Do they perform on steep inclines? Because both UT and downtown Austin have pretty big hills. So that's the second question. Then what are you going to do about redistribution if everybody's taking them one direction or the other? I don't know which one would be better.
Yeah. To address the incline issue, and I've looked on YouTube. I think there's a video of a Segway riding up and down the world's steepest street. I've ridden it all around. I've really never experienced any problems. There are some readjustment that happens while you're riding it when you change slope, and it requires you to redistribute your weight a little bit, but it's something that's very simple to pick up. And then the second question.
It was about like if they all end up
Oh, right, redistribution. So I know that the bike share, B-Cycle, like they have their trucks that drive around and deal with the rack system. And that's another thing about the racks is that it requires that fleet distribution, making sure that the demand is met. I've talked with the people at Car2Go who have the free flow model like what I'm proposing, and they're able to manage their 300 cars with less than 10 people. They say that there's just a natural redistribution that happens. I'm sure that every once in a while for big events like Blues on the Green or ACL, that they have to maybe go out and take some cars from the periphery and bring them into the center of downtown. But we don't believe that there's going to be a required constant redistribution. It's something that we will, be tracking, and there'll be full analytics based off, where trips are more likely to occur and making sure that the demand is met. But we believe that it'll sort itself out naturally.
We got time for one more question.
Last question.
Have you checked with the city on parking and put these things on the street? I mean, is there a certain designated area we have to locate them when they're not being used?
So that's a little bit sticky. I mean, what it states is that Segways can be parked where bikes can be parked, and where bikes can be parked is on sidewalks as long as they're not impeding pedestrian traffic. The reason that they get tied up to racks or bike locks or whatever is because they don't have the theft prevention or whatever. So that's why there's kind of like designated spots for bikes. Based off my reading of the code, as long as it's on the sidewalk and it's not blocking any foot traffic, so that could be parked on the edges of the sidewalk or parked on the edge close to the building, so maybe leaning up against the building and leaving a clear walkway. That's my interpretation. The goal wouldn't be to park them on streets, it would be on the sidewalk. Cool.
All right, so next up we have our